This is much more than just the acute care hospital. This is about the overall system and making it more accessible to the patients of Windsor, Essex, that they don't have to all go to the acute care site. And when they leave, they don't have to go back. They can stay out in the community. One of the things we're focusing on is this issue of emergency room visits. And the issue, as Gary indicated, we have about 140,000 emergency room visits between the two campuses right now. That number, about 8,000 of them actually go directly to our, we have what's called NOBI triage. So it's really about 130,000 because about 8,000 go if you are past a certain period of time in your pregnancy, you bypass the emergency department altogether and you go directly to the floor. And that will continue in the new hospitals. People don't have to wait in the emergency department. One of the interesting concepts, though, that's out there that's actually in action is in Toronto, where they have what's called an urgent care center. We have to remember, as Gary indicated, not only patients stay in a acute care hospital for only 6 to 7 days on average, a lot less. About 90% of the patients that go to an emergency department go home. They don't stay, they don't get admitted. Only about 10 to 12% of our patients from our emergency department get admitted to an inpatient bed. So how can we make that experience for 90% of our patients better? So what happens right now at our 2 acute care sites is if you're there and you're part of that 90% who are going to be going home, and some of that 10% individual comes in by way of trauma, or we have what's called a Canadian triage acuity scale, a lower, like a 1 or a 2, that they require immediate assistance. The resources from that emergency department get taken to take care of that patient. What happens then is that 90%, their time gets delayed. And it's not an issue of, well, throw more doctors, throw more nurses. That's not the issue. The issue is how do we focus on that 90%? So what they did in just with Trillium Healthcare is they focused on that 90% and they created what's called an urgent care center. And an urgent care center, their urgent care center actually sees 60 to 65,000 patients a year. There's a video, it's a little longer, it's about 3 minutes. I'm going to show it to you in its entirety because I think it's very important to hear this concept, and I'll talk about it a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Allison Johnson for Windsor Regional Hospital. Today we're heading to Toronto, Ontario to check out a model of urgent care that's helping to reduce hospital wait times by keeping patients out of emergency rooms. Welcome to the Queensway Urgent Care Centre. It's a former hospital that closed in the late 90s. Today it's run by the Trillium Health Partners Hospital, and the old emergency area is used to treat patients with serious but non-life-threatening issues.
It's an emergency services center that provides care to a focused segment of patients, and it's those patients that are less sick or have less acute medical issues. It's not a center that's open 24 hours a day, and we do not receive ambulances like an emergency department would.
But they do treat 65,000 patients a year here, and these are patients who might otherwise be stuck waiting in the hospital's nearby emergency departments.
So the goal is to provide a strategy to help with emergency department wait time reduction. We've developed an alternate site of care that's appropriate for many patients that don't necessarily require the resources and everything that goes along with running an emergency department.
And they can get the results right away. This model is working so well, a group of Windsor Regional emergency care leaders came along for the tour today to check it out.
How far can you actually move that?
Maybe to about there.
Because it's not a hospital, there are no beds to admit patients, so you wouldn't come here if you're having a stroke or a heart attack.
We do see a lot of patients who come with musculoskeletal complaints, back pain, broken bones, sprains, cuts.
But don't confuse this with your typical walk-in clinic. The former hospital still has a full-blown set of diagnostics.
Through diagnostic imaging, laboratory services, and that allows the physician the confidence to treat and diagnose a patient as to whether they require follow-up care in an acute setting. If it's a cold, if it's a flu, if it's an earache, then that's more for the walk-in clinic. But here we look at people with suffering headaches or nausea or abdominal pain, something that can't be easily diagnosed without supportive diagnostics.
Staff are all emergency trained, and working at both the acute site and the urgent care site gives staff the ability to keep up their skills and to be able to rotate and enjoy a little bit of variety.
All right, so say I've broken my wrist and I go to the Credit Valley Emergency Department right now. How long can I expect to wait to see a doctor and be out the door?
The average wait time could be from beginning to end about 4 hours to come in, get your diagnostics done, see the physician, and treatment, and by the time you leave.
Okay. Same injury, I come here.
So it would be significantly less time, where our average time for lower acuity patients could be 2.5 hours. Again, it depends on why you're coming in.
So possibly half the time to come here.
Could be, yep.
Shorter wait times than a hospital emergency and more advanced treatment than a walk-in clinic.
We like to say this is the best kept secret in the Greater Toronto Area.
And it's a model that could have legs closer to home, as this group sets out to map out the future of our emergency healthcare in Windsor, Essex.
They still have the ultrasound, the CT scan, and from this, it becomes more than a walk-in clinic. It becomes somewhere where real medical decisions can be made, and that takes the burden off the department where patients need to be admitted. And I think we can take some aspects of that away for our model of Windsor and incorporate that in our design, and I think we can kind of win from coming here today and seeing how they do it.
So as highlighted on that video, this concept is working to the point that when you're there, there's some patients that come in and they bypass, they'll show up and they'll show where they're from, and they'll say to them, do you know to get here you pass like 3 hospital emergency departments? They said, yeah, like you said, it's the best kept secret in Toronto. It allows that patient to have focus. Now where this is located, Queensway is about 7 kilometers from the Auditorium site. So the concept is you don't put this immediately attached to the new acute care hospital. You put it where the new acute care hospital is at. You put it where the acute care hospital is across from it, in the sense of 5 to 7 kilometers away from it, to service a population, for a population to go, to have access to these services, not immediately attached, but to service Windsor, Essex. And it's been a great success. It relieves the pressure off of the emergency department itself, and it provides faster, more efficient care for those patients. A patient who does go here to this urgent care center in Toronto, that maybe the patient came in and maybe they are having a heart attack, they immediately get transported to the acute care site. EMS transports them. So that happens. If during their stay at the urgent care center, things just get worse and worse for them, then they go over to the hospital, get immediately admitted into the hospital site. This will be run and governed, operated by, as indicated here, Windsor Regional Hospital, to be the same physicians and the same nurses that are in the emergency department will also serve the urgent care center, and they move back and forth to get that experience back and forth and to have that expertise. For us, kind of in Windsor, we hear urgent care, and it's kind of a misnomer because, again, we have some centers, they're walk-in clinics, and they say urgent care. That's not urgent care. Those are walk-in clinics. This, as stated, is totally different. So this is something that is going to be part of the submission when we submit for the new hospital. This is going to be included. The new hospital does not happen unless this is part of it, and that's guaranteed. So something exciting, something that works. So where are we at in the process? We're really early in the process. We're here. Stage 1 actually has a stage 1A and B. Stage 2 is a process, and then you got stage 3 to actual construction implementation, stage 5. So we are very early here. And the amount of community consultation we've had for here, as Gary stated, for a provincial perspective, is groundbreaking. And the reason it is, and the reason we wanted to do this and get the community engaged, is, as Dave Cook said, we don't want this to say Windsor Regional Hospital. We want it to say it's our hospital. It's your hospital. It's our community's hospital. It's going to be with us for generations to come. And we have technically one chance, and we've got to do it right. And that's what we're committed to do, and that's why we've gotten everyone involved as early as we can. The critical part, we're going to be submitting stage 1 to the government, to the LIN actually, first around May of this year. We're going to be doing that before site is selected and announced, and the reason for that is the ministry and the LIN wants this project to keep moving. They really like our site selection process, they're confident in it, and as a result, generally they don't allow projects to move to stage 2 or even submit stage 1 until site selected, but they didn't want our process to slow this down. They wanted our process to continue because actually we've been called by a couple other hospitals in the province who are in this process right now, and they're asking us, how are you doing it? We're hearing some great things about what's been happening in Windsor with respect to site, because I'll tell you, a lot of jurisdictions, there's a couple people in a room that look at a map and do this and say, guess what? There's a site of the new hospital. Let's go. We said we're not going to do that. Now, along with that comes a lot of people clearly getting involved, giving different opinions, which is great. So maybe the other places that didn't do that, they just pick it, and they just figure, you know what, we'll deal with the consequences of that as compared to getting the community involved. Our group said no. We want to get the community involved as early as possible, get them involved in every step of this process. The critical thing is getting to stage 2. Right now, the question is not only if we're going to have a new hospital, but when we're going to have a new hospital. You move to stage 2, the only question is when. The question of if is answered. And that's why it's critical. We got to move this ahead. So yeah, there'll be naysayers out there saying, well, the government's going to run out of money and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, hey, that might all happen. But no matter what happens, we're going to be in the process. We're going to be in the queue. And if it slows down or speeds up or whatever happens, we're still in that same queue. No one's allowed to jump over us. That's what we need to have happen for our community. And that's why it's so important to move forward. With respect to the preliminary designs, when we get to stage 2, especially near the end of stage 2 to stage 3, is with preliminary designs. This concept of when we're getting to design the hospital. Again, we're going to get the patients involved. We're going to get the community involved in that. We're going to use what we learned from the SOP process, but we're going to start mocking up patient rooms. We're going to start mocking up different areas of the hospital and get patients to come in, kick the tires, give us ideas, give us their thoughts. Because there's a lot of experts in the community, and we got to draw that information in. Because again, this is going to be a hospital for our community for generations to come. And that's why it's so important we get it right the first time. So again, I ask you to go to windsorhospitals.ca if you haven't already. Please go, sign up. Every time we put new information on, a video or any information regarding what's going on in the province of Ontario or updates with respect to the project, you will be emailed. You will be notified that we're adding new things. So please go to this website. It's a fantastic website with respect to a lot of information on the project. And if you go there, this is basically what you're going to see is some information you can click on and get highlighted with respect to the information on different videos and some history with respect to the project. So on behalf of Dave, Gary, myself, I want to thank Mayor Dilkins for inviting us here tonight. Really appreciate him reaching out to us and saying on behalf of the residents of Windsor to come out and talk to you again. This isn't one stop. I mean, Dave and I, it seems every time we go to one of these sessions, we'll get an email asking us to go to 2 more. So we have at least 2 a month, and we're going to continue to do this, continue to update the project as we go along.